Every sound is a threat. Every shadow holds a secret. Tonight, we dive into the 3 most terrifying true stories of terror when you're alone at night. Our first story takes us to the quiet, isolated countryside, where quiet means danger. The resident was home alone when they started to hear faint voices outside, trying to be quiet. The suspicion mounted. Someone was trespassing far from the road. The resident went to the window and instantly the voices stopped. They knew they were seen. The thought of multiple eyes staring up from the darkness was profoundly unsettling. After 30 minutes of terror, the resident risked opening the front door to investigate.
I shouldn't have come back here.
Nothing but wind and crickets, but a feeling of overwhelming paranoia washed over them. They could sense multiple eyes focused on them right at that moment. They rushed back inside, locking the door, the feeling of imminent danger barely receding. Hours later, the calm was violently shattered by a crashing sound from the hallway. Someone had thrown a rock straight through the back hallway window. The siege had begun. Multiple voices were now yelling commands outside, followed by heavy slams on the front door. More windows shattered as the victim dialed 911, locking themselves in the bedroom. Then came the terrifying sound of the front door crashing open, followed by footsteps and laughter. The group had successfully invaded. The police were still 5 minutes away. The only escape, the incredibly dangerous trek out onto the roof via the bedroom window. Below, the attackers were smashing the bedroom door, their voices sickeningly playful. The attackers left only when the sirens approached, confirming they weren't robbers. They were looking for the victim. Our next tale takes place on Halloween, when masked figures have license to terrorize. The victim, alone at night, kept seeing movement between the curtains while watching a horror movie. Expecting nothing, they finally looked out and saw a man in a dark costume out on the street. The figure seemed drunk, aimlessly walking back and forth, far too far to be the source of the movement. They returned to the movie, then a knock at the door. It had to be the drunk man, but he wasn't leaving. Looking through the peephole, the victim saw something chilling. The man was motionless, perfectly still. He wasn't drunk, he was waiting, staring. The man eventually walked away down the sidewalk, seemingly done with his bizarre visit. Hours passed. The victim was alone again, trying to rest. Then a slow, deliberate tapping noise began from the opposite end of the house. Following the sound, the victim reached the family room window. Then they saw it, the shadowy figure of a man standing right behind the glass. He was too dark to see clearly, but the tapping was relentless. The victim frantically dialed 911, the tapping noise a sickening soundtrack to the call. The tapping stopped. The figure saw them and simply walked away into the night. It had to be the same creepy man from earlier, stalking the home, testing boundaries. Police found no trace, but 2 weeks later, a similar incident was reported nearby. The stalker was still out there, targeting homes. The terrifying question remains: what would have happened if the door had been opened? Our final horror is a modern fear, the invasion that comes not through the door, but the phone. A gamer was home alone, waiting for friends, when an unknown number called, twice, then a third time. The victim picked up. Silence. But they could hear the distinct sound of wind in the background. A few hours later, after gaming with friends, the call stopped. Then, a text from the same number. It was a picture. The victim opened the image. Their blood ran cold. It was a picture of them, gaming at their desk, taken from right behind them just moments ago. They spun around. The room was empty. The only thought, the window. The theory: the picture was taken from outside. The window was locked. Friends told them to call the police, but the victim needed to check the house first. They barely made it down the hallway before seeing the front door. It was wide open. The intruder was inside. The victim sprinted back to the bedroom, locking the door just as footsteps came from the hall. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. They stopped right outside the door. A slow, soft knock on the wood, then another. He never spoke a word. The police were called. The silent siege lasted 30 seconds before the intruder backed away and left. The number was a burner phone. The intruder was never seen, never identified. The terrifying thought remains: what's stopping him from coming back and doing something even worse? These nightmares prove that the true horror is often silence in the darkness. If you dare to face the terror behind the trending, then you've found your home. Subscribe to Terror Tales TV, like this video, and comment: which true horror story should we investigate next?
Terror Tales TV.
The light is our shield, but what happens when the light fails? Tonight, we expose the horrifying reality behind 3 true stories of terror that begin when the world goes dark. Prepare for the ultimate fear, the Blackout Horror compilation. The first tale: a cozy night turned catastrophic by a violent thunderstorm. Then the phone rang, an unrecognized number from the local area code. The answer was only silence, but not a deadline. There was background noise, a messy sound like the storm. An hour later, the storm exploded. Thunder, lightning, and heavy rain grew deafening. The lights in TV flickered, then blinked out entirely. The house was plunged into sudden, silent blackness. The whole street was dark. It was a complete blackout, amplifying the storm's fury. Then a new sound, the back gate swinging open in the wind. Through the rain, a shadow of a man was standing in the middle of the backyard, motionless. The figure slowly lifted his arm, bringing a small glowing light to his head. At that exact moment, the phone rang in the other room. It was the same number.
Yes, hello, I'm
He had been outside, listening to the rain on the line, stalking the house for an hour. When the victim returned to the door, the man was gone. They had vanished into the storm. The phone rang again, making the victim jump, seconds before a loud, heavy knock came from the front door. Heavy hits shook the walls. The power failure had drawn the intruder to the front. Trapped in the dark, the victim froze, overcome by the surreal combined terror of the storm and the siege.
Please, I need help.
The aggressive assault on the door continued, forcing a frantic call to the police.
Stop! Police, stop
The
right
attack
now!
only ceased when the police arrived, forcing a chase into the rain. The figure escaped, leaving behind only an unnerving truth. The storm didn't hide the killer, it brought him to the door. The second story. Home alone for the weekend, a middle schooler saw a strange man near the garage. He had a distinct look, tall, skinny, long dark hair, and a patchy beard. The witness was uneasy. Later that night, while gaming with a friend, a sudden thump from the floor below stopped everything. Before they could react, the entire house went dark. TV, Xbox, lights, gone. The power was intentionally shut off, likely by the thump they heard. They needed to check the basement breaker box. Oddly, the basement door was already open. With phone flashlights, they descended the creaky wooden stairs into the dark, unfinished basement. The space was dark, a wide corridor with concrete walls and deep shadows. The panel to the electrical box was partially opened. The main switch was flipped to the off position. Hesitantly, the friend flipped the switch back up. The house appliances whirred back to life upstairs. The basement remained dark, lit only by the staircase sliver of light. Then a sudden shuffling sound came from the other side of the corridor. The flashlight beam snapped in that direction, and there he was. The tall, skinny figure with long, dark hair. The man from the morning. He was standing behind the boxes, his face obscured by shadow. They bolted, slamming the door and running right out the front of the house. The lights were now on in every other house on the street. It was targeted terror. As they called 911, the figure moved past a downstairs window, then an upstairs window. He was walking through the house they had just fled. The intruder escaped, but the terrifying intent was clear. He was stalking them, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Our final story takes us deep into the off-grid wilderness of Montana, where isolation is the danger. An old, isolated cabin, powered only by a gas generator, was the victim's retreat. Randomly, an old truck appeared on the dirt trail, stopped, and then left, not once looking back. That night, the victim started a campfire on the porch, enjoying the peaceful forest sounds. Then the lights cut out. The generator had fallen silent. The gas tank was empty. Someone had drained the fuel, knowing it would cut the power. Annoyed but unconcerned, the victim sat back down. Then they saw it. A person, or something that resembled a person, standing motionless among the trees. The quiet ambiance turned eerie. The victims sensed they were being watched. Then a sound to the left, a stick falling or maybe a footstep. The victim looked back to the forest. The single figure was back, then another, and another. Maybe a dozen figures stood motionless between the trees, covered in darkness, all facing the cabin. It was too dark and still to confirm, but after a few minutes the figure vanished. Flight mode activated. The victim sprinted inside and slammed the door. Through the window, the figures were gone, but then came the footsteps. 4 or 5 pairs of heavy boots slowly walked up onto the wooden porch right outside the door. Disturbingly, the entire group was silent, moving with coordinated intent, not talking. 10 minutes passed. The group waited on the porch, anticipating the victim's next move. The victim risked a glance. The porch was empty. They were gone without a sound. Keys in hand, the victim bolted, speeding down the dark, isolated road. The haunting question remains: who was that group, and what did they intend by cutting the power and waiting? These nightmares prove that the true horror is often silence in the darkness. If you dare to face the terror behind the trending, then you've found your home. Subscribe to Terror Tales TV, like this video, and comment. Which true horror story should we investigate next? Halloween, the one night we pretend fear is fun. These 3 stories prove that sometimes the mask is real. Prepare for a journey into true terror, where the pursuit is real and the threat is human.
Trick or treat!
It was the first time they were trick-or-treating alone. That freedom quickly turned into a trap. They noticed 2 men across the street. They wore costumes, but they were bigger and always seemed to be near. To lose them, the boys chose a shortcut, the dark woods, a path they had never taken at night. They stopped to breathe, plunging into pitch-black darkness. Then they heard it, footsteps behind them. The footsteps confirmed it. They were not mistaken. This was a chase, and the men had horrific intent. They burst onto an unknown street and finally found a familiar neighborhood, a desperate escape to safety. But the fear followed. In the middle of the night, they both woke up to a chilling sound. 2 sets of footsteps were walking up the driveway, right to the front of the house. The boys saw nothing, but they never forgot the feeling of being hunted through the Halloween night. A peaceful night handing out candy was interrupted by a visitor who wasn't a child. The girl wore a dead bride costume and white face paint. She looked older, and her face held no expression. After receiving candy, she backed away immediately, a clear sign she knew exactly where the doorbell camera was. The occupant hurried downstairs. The porch was empty. Then, from the shadow of the hallway, a sound.
The door is open.
Quiet whispers. 2 people talking back and forth, coming from the other end of the house. Realizing the invaders were inside, the occupant bolted out the front door and ran to call the police. Seconds later, the doorbell camera captured the chilling finale, the girl and the man sprinting out of the house. They had picked the lock while the occupant was deafened by the shower. They were never identified. They targeted the vulnerable, leaving behind only the terrifying footage of their silent invasion. The holiday started with a simple decoration. It ended with a stalker standing on the porch. A man knocked, complimenting the small decoration. It was the best he'd ever seen.
You need to let me in right now. We can do this.
Days later, he returned.
The hard way.
He tried to force small
just
talk,
go away.
refusing to leave the porch. The homeowner had to close the door in his face. He lingered for 20 seconds, contemplating a second knock. It was Halloween night. Looking across the street, the homeowner saw him again. The stalker was standing motionless on the sidewalk, observing the house, waiting for the crowds to leave. Late into the night, a sudden, jolting knock. The stalker was back, holding a generic square box. "Got something for you," he called. He insisted the homeowner open the door for this gift. The homeowner immediately dialed 911, staying frozen by the door as the stalker kept knocking. After a minute, he finally gave up and walked away, taking his mysterious box with him. The police found nothing, but the feeling remained. The stalker was still nearby, waiting for the next holiday. If these true stories terrified you, subscribe to Terror Tales TV and let us know which chilling encounter was the absolute worst. Tonight, we unleash the horrors of the real world. First, a modern legend born from the internet's darkest corners, the rake. Witnesses describe a gaunt, naked humanoid, its eyes burning into your soul.
Remember when the tent almost blew away last time?
Sarah and Mark, camping deep
Don't
in the
remind me, I
Appalachian
thought we were
woods,
done
were about
before.
to meet it. A rustling outside their tent wasn't wind. It was something heavy, breathing. Mark peered out. The flashlight beam cut through the black, and then it froze. Standing just yards away, barely visible, was the creature, watching them. Its eyes, like coals, fixated on Mark, filled with a primal, predatory hunger. Sarah tried to scream, but the air in the tent grew impossibly cold. The rake slowly began to circle their tent, its movements inhumanly silent. A faint scraping sound, not on the ground, but on the tent fabric itself. Mark seized a heavy branch. He had to confront it. It wasn't the rake. It was a fragment of the darkness it carried. But a shadow, impossibly long, stretched from the deepest part of the woods towards them. It wasn't the rake. It was a fragment of the darkness it carried. They ran. The forest itself seemed to twist and turn, trapping them. They never saw the rake again, but they still hear the scrape. And in the deepest shadows of their peripheral vision, a pair of burning eyes. The rake is always there, always watching, waiting. A modern terror proving some horrors are not just stories.
I'm the whispering dog.
Our next tale takes us to a seemingly innocent childhood, forever scarred by a toy. Lisa, a quiet girl of 7, received an antique porcelain doll for her birthday. The doll, named Clarissa, had piercing blue eyes and a permanent, faint smile.
Look how cute you are. Wave hello.
At first, Clarissa was a beloved
I
companion.
just love you so
Lisa told her
much.
everything. But soon, Lisa started hearing whispers from her room after dark. Whispers calling her name. Whispers that seemed to come from Clarissa.
It's all right, Lisa. We're right here with you.
Lisa's parents dismissed it as imagination, but the whispers grew clearer. Lisa, play with me. Stay awake. One night, Lisa woke to Clarissa standing at the foot of her bed. Its eyes were no longer glass. They seemed to glow with a chilling malice. Lisa screamed. Her parents rushed in. Clarissa was back on the dresser, smiling. They locked Clarissa in the attic, but the whispers followed.
What do we do now?
They heard her singing eerie lullabies, echoing through the empty house. Lisa found Clarissa in her bed again, her cold porcelain hand clutching a lock of Lisa's hair. Her parents, terrified, tried to destroy the doll. Fire wouldn't burn it, hammer couldn't break it. Clarissa always reappeared. They took it to a secluded graveyard, burying it deep beneath the earth. That night, a terrifying scream woke the entire family. The scream wasn't from Lisa, it was from outside. Clarissa was found on their doorstep the next morning, covered in fresh dirt. Our final terrifying true story takes us to a lonely stretch of highway. Truck drivers and late-night commuters tell tales of a mysterious hitchhiker. A young woman in a white dress, always on Highway 666.
Please.
Mark,
you
a
won't
long-haul
listen.
trucker, offered her
We
a
are
ride
coming.
one stormy night. She was silent, soaked to the bone, staring straight ahead. Mark tried to make conversation, but she never responded. He grew uneasy. Her presence in the truck felt impossibly cold.
I can't believe we finally made time for this trip.
I know,
As
it
he
feels
neared
like
the
it's been
town she
ages.
requested,
I'm
he
really
turned to
looking
tell
forward
her.
to it.
So am I.
The seat was empty. No trace of her. Just the chill. Mark slammed on the brakes. His truck skidded wildly. Lying in the middle of the road was the young woman, unmoving. Mark checked her pulse. Her skin was freezing. No heartbeat.
Dispatchers, we are on scene.
He called for help, but the police found no body, no evidence. Just a single ancient ornate hair clip lying where her head had been. Mark later discovered the town's local legend. A young bride killed on that exact spot 60 years ago. She seeks a ride home, and if you give it, you become part of her endless loop. These stories, born from whispers and terror, prove horror is real. If you dare to face the terror behind the trending, then you've found your home. Subscribe to Terror Tales TV. Like this video and comment. What viral fear should we investigate next?